Oh boy. Rise of Skywalker. This is just one of those movies that I can't really comprehend. It just doesn't click with me. What I think this movie does very bad is that it tries to reconstruct everything from the past movies. So The Last Jedi specifically, it just didn't like anything it did in that movie, and it just felt like a reaction to that movie, which is truly a bummer because I speak for everyone when I say this. We wanted this movie to be great. We wanted this movie to be not prequel. We wanted this to be original trilogy levels of good, and I think we got our hopes up too high for this one. Another thing that really makes this movie not that good is J.J. Abrams' style of writing and how he had to basically make this movie in 6 months. And J.J. Abrams knows how to write a movie. He knows how to write quick, snappy movies and dialogue that really clicks with the characters he's trying to write with. But I truly felt that we got the table scraps of what we could have gotten because J.J. Abrams didn't get enough time, because I know in my heart that he knows how to make a good movie because he's done it in the past. With examples like The Force Awakens and Lost, J.J. Abrams has proven himself that he can write a very good story. If I had to say this in one word, I'd say this movie was rushed. It feels like it was hauled out the door to hit holiday season and to make more money off of people just trying to have some fun with Star Wars. This actually circles back pretty nicely to J.J. Abrams' style of writing. He needs time to make a good movie, and when he gets given time, he can make something great. And his mystery box style of writing just didn't compute in this movie. It didn't click with a lot of people, especially not me, with plot convenience. And plot convenience has its time and a place, but when the exact item at the exact time they need it falls right in their lap, it just pisses me off how lazily written this movie was. Like Ray saying, "We need to find a map to fight the evildoers in the White House." And then they fall in some quicksand, and C-3PO's like, "We found the exact map to the exact location we are going." Like, isn't that convenient? I think that's just dumb. Like, there's another way around it, and they just couldn't figure it out because of, I'd like to think, time constraints. But maybe there's another reason. But hey, don't get me wrong, plot convenience is necessary for anything to happen in any movie. Like, oh, what a coincidence. This alien named E.T. just happened to land on our planet and just happened to do these things in this order. Like, it's a necessary part of storytelling. But when you use it and abuse it in such an egregious way, like in this movie, it feels jarring and like they're just making stuff up just so the movie can have more runtime. It just boggles my mind why they couldn't find another way around this. Oh my god, why is this movie so bad? What I think made this movie such a train wreck is that there was no plan, there was no before making this movie. They kind of just said, well, we didn't like The Last Jedi and we have to make a good movie that fans will like, and we can't really have the best of both worlds, so we got this. This is why I think J.J. Abrams and the rest of his writing staff is really just flying by the seat of their pants, because they really don't know what's going on just as much as we don't know what's going on. Now, this is where we have to appreciate the prequels. I mean, appreciate's a strong word, but you get what I mean. At the very least, there was a set goal in mind when they were making Anakin and Obi-Wan. They at least knew where this was going and how it was gonna end, and I think they pulled it off fairly well. But in this movie, they had no idea what was going on, because The Last Jedi, I think I'm saying that a lot in this video, but The Last Jedi, screwed it all up because Rian Johnson wants to say a message with a Star Wars movie. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. A Star Wars movie can say a message, like in A New Hope, when they're saying hope, it's hopeful. It's a good movie because it makes you think of adventure and grandeur. But in this movie, it really doesn't say anything because it can't say anything because it's retroactively blurring the lines of The Last Jedi. And I think that's kind of a bummer because this movie had so much potential and we could have gotten something so much better than what we originally got. And the result of this is all the writers screwing up all the characters that we know and love, or know at least, because we don't really know who they are. Because in the past 3 movies, in all of these movies they've ever been in. We've never gotten any details for any of them, really, honestly. The only one we've gotten details for are Rey, and even at that, we barely scratched the surface of who she was. And now she's a Palpatine. I think they really screwed up Rey in this movie, but we'll get to that later, trust me. Back to what I was saying earlier, Rey wasn't the only character we got info on. We got a lot of info on Finn, and I think he was supposed to be the main character of this trilogy, but I feel like he was really shoved to the side, and his character arc that we never got to see could have been so much better than what we actually got. I just find Finn so radically interesting, you know, someone from the evil side coming to the good side and really knowing the ins and outs of both sides can lead to some pretty cool shenanigans, in my opinion. But they never take use in any of these advantages, which is so disappointing, not just for The Rise of Skywalker, but for the entire trilogy. In the first movie, Finn really goes through his entire character arc, and he just sits around for the next two, just to have a third character. And being African American and a stormtrooper, I think it is a giant missed opportunity. They could have at least done something with him, but no, they didn't do anything, and I think that is so terrible. I've been talking about him too much. On to Poe. Surprisingly enough, Poe is one of the only characters to actually get development in this movie. We find out his background, where he came from, what he did before he joined the Rebels, and in my opinion, I think it's just a little too late. If they wanted to set up Finn and make us care about him, they should have done it way earlier in the trilogy, not in the last movie. Come on. This is when Han Solo gets out of Carbonite, not when he's going in it. I mean, come on, guys. The only thing we know about Poe up to this point is that he's a brash, unthinking pilot who does what he wants because he can, and he's badass. And that's not really what Star Wars is. He shouldn't be this untouchable Superman figure. He should just be a normal person in a normal, semi-normal Star Wars world. But I feel like sometimes the writers treat Poe as if he's some god and he can't die, and he's the last one on the battlefield. He takes out the dreadnought. He's the best pilot in the galaxy, when I feel like that's just kind of cheap, in my opinion. And yes, in The Last Jedi and The Force Awakens, they show us that he is an actually great pilot, but I feel like they say that all the time, and he actually doesn't have any flaws, which makes me really mad because every character has flaws, everybody has flaws, but they just wrote Poe as this mythical being. Hey, Post-Edit Joe here, and I just wanted to say, yes, I know in The Last Jedi he was knocked down a peg, and he did learn some humility. I just think that in this movie he was treated like an untouchable god, and that's what really built the foundation of this criticism. Now, come back to Rey. I think that Rey is more similar to a pancake than she is to a Jedi, because she has been flip-flopped so many different times. I don't even know what character this is. Is she a badass with a staff, or is she a crackhead with a lightsaber? Does she know the Force, or is she just someone else? Is she related to someone important to the story, or is just she some nobody from some desert planet? Like, we've never seen that before. I don't know, like, they just never had a clear idea for who she is and who she wanted to be. I feel like they just chose that for her instead of letting her make the decision for herself. There was no moment in this movie where Rey was like, I'm gonna go figure out my past. They just flat out said, you're a Palpatine now. This is who you are. Accept it or die. And I think that's kind of stupid. Rey, coming from absolute nobody's, added some depth to her character, you know? Like, it totally destroyed the idea of midichlorians, and at the same time reinforced the idea of the Force being able to attract to anyone at any point in time. And in a way, I think this would have connected her to the Skywalkers in more ways than one, because if you think about it, Anakin also came from nothing and was created by the Force to balance the Force, but inevitably became Darth Vader. And they still would have been able to have the ending they wanted by her saying, "I am a Skywalker" at the end of the movie, because technically she would be. She would be an extension of Hayden Christensen, also known as Anakin Skywalker, with just a different name and a different skin. It's just a rebirth of the old, which would have been an incredible way to tell the story on the fly. They could have just made that up. But no, they decided to make her a Palpatine and ruin pretty much any development she had in any of the other two movies. This also makes giant plot holes for the prequels that never were there in the first place. When did he have a girlfriend? Did he ever have a girlfriend? Did he get married? And did this happen off screen? Because if it did, it must have happened in between A New Hope and Revenge of the Sith, or did it happen somewhere else? We don't know, because it never happened and it never was intended to happen. I think they just took the Palpatine thing and just pulled it out of their butt just to be able to say there was a twist in this movie.
Boom, roasted. Boom, roasted. You're gay.
Which is so dumb. Why would you sacrifice your best character or one of your best characters just for shock value? Like, no one's gonna rewatch this and give a crap. You people rewatch the original trilogies, one, because they're good movies, and two, because they make you think about what's going on behind the scenes, what's happening other than the main Star Wars cast. And going into the sequel trilogy, I think that really could have paid off by saying, hey, someone else in the galaxy was also Force sensitive and was also Rey's parents. That'd be a cool side story to explore. But now that Rey's a Palpatine, we will never have that ever, because there's no need to. And if there was a need to, it will just make more problems for everything else. Rey's parents has been a highly debated topic over all three of these movies, and I felt like it was building to something in The Last Jedi and just totally decimated it in this movie. Without a shadow of doubt, it didn't care what The Last Jedi did. It wanted to do its own thing, and also just not care about The Last Jedi. I feel like this movie hates Rian Johnson. It makes all Star Wars fans hate Rian Johnson too. Star Wars fans live in this tiny universe where they think that Rian Johnson isn't a successful director. I mean, he is a successful director. Knives Out is a great movie, and his episodes in Breaking Bad are one of the best. And yes, The Last Jedi did make some pretty dumb decisions, which I'll get into in another video, but that doesn't mean we have to retroactively reverse everything that happened in that movie just to make sure this movie makes any sense. Because it doesn't. But don't worry, there is still a silver lining across this entire movie, and that is Kylo Ren. I think the idea of Kylo Ren is infinitely fascinating to me. A boy, or the son, or I mean grandson of Darth Vader, wanting to live up to those expectations and at the same time being afraid to fail to live up to those expectations, I think is a very intriguing plot. I think that by having him in the first movie being this big old baby Darth Vader wannabe, throwing temper tantrums when he gets mad, and then evolving into this supreme leader, Kylo Ren, and really coming into his own person, is a great idea and literally sets itself up from the very beginning. And I truly believe that he is the through line through all of this terrible, this complete utter mess of a trilogy. He is the shining star in the middle of all this darkness. Talk crap about whatever you want about these movies. Kylo Ren is the only redeeming character from any of these three movies. And what I said earlier pretty much is what happened, having him be this big old baby in The Force Awakens, then Last Jedi fighting Luke Skywalker and letting the past die, and becoming his own person, and becoming Supreme Leader Kylo, and by the end accepting his father's death and going out on his own to become something, not the dark side, not the light side, but his own person. He's not being influenced by Luke Skywalker, and he's not being pulled by Darth Vader anymore. He's Kylo Ren. He's his own person, and he deserves this triumph by the end of the movie. I think Kylo Ren is the only character that has a through line and character arc throughout any of these movies, and the only redeeming part of this trilogy, because he's genuinely a really good character, and Adam Driver's performance is something to write home about. He definitely does a great job in the role, and he's cool. Like, he's really cool looking, and I think that also helps to his moxie as a character. I don't know, I just like looking at him on screen and watching him grow, watching his journey flourish into something greater than it actually was. And yes, I think the ending of this movie was kind of dumb, and he shouldn't have died, but I mean, there's nothing left to do with this character. There's nothing more that you could have done with Kylo Ren. And I feel like him dying is the best way they could have pulled this off, in my opinion. I think something else they pulled off very, very well was Leia and Carrie Fisher's untimely death, and what little screen time we have of her is very good, and I feel like her death correlating with Kylo Ren becoming and growing into his own person is really good art, I think. And when people say they cry at this movie, that's probably where it was. When Leia dies and you see Han talking to Kylo Ren and telling him that he doesn't need what he has, he just needs himself, and he's good enough for all of us, which I think is very lighthearted in a way and wholesome. It's the most wholesome I think Star Wars has ever gotten. It just feels like a father talking to his estranged son who he hasn't seen in a while because they had a really big fight, and that's necessarily what happens in this movie. And by having him and his father there to help him accept Han's death and the death of his mother, because he can feel it through the Force, it just feels so natural. It's the only thing I feel like that was earned in this movie. Everything else I think was so hand-fistedly egregious. Makes me just wish it could have been better. But this is the one moment I think that really sets it apart from other Star Wars movies. Star Wars. Star Wars. I don't even think I need to talk about that third act. It was just Endgame. That's just what it was. It was just Endgame. And I think that's kind of disappointing, because Star Wars is usually something to bring something new to the table, and I felt like there was nothing new there. The third act was just a third act with a Deus Ex Machina at the end, and you just really didn't surprise me whatsoever. I just never thought I'd see the day that a Star Wars movie would end in a skybeam. Like, this isn't The Flash, this is a blockbuster Star Wars movie, and it ended in the same ending as The Flash Season 2. And I think that's kind of lazy in my opinion. And why? Why did Palpatine just keep shocking himself in the face? Why didn't he just stop? Like, in the prequels, he did the exact same thing. Mace Windu's blocking the lightning, and then he just stopped. He said, "I'm too weak." But why didn't he just do that with Rey? Like, if he just stopped and, like, grabbed his lightsaber and just, like, stabbed her, it would have been over. It would have been over. Like, why did he just keep lightning himself? Like, is he a sucker for pain or something? I don't get it. I just don't understand why he would just keep continuously hurting himself if he knows he is the last stand of the entire empire. Like, you are not smart. This is not a plan. You never had a plan, just like the writers and just like Disney. You never had a plan, and you don't know what to do. Another thing that makes me mad is that Poe is like, "Oh no, this is the end of the rebellion. We're all gonna die, and this is it. Say your goodbyes." And then freaking Lando is like, "On your left." And you're just like, wow. They won because they had to win. There was no stakes involved. The third act was so bland because you know they were gonna win. They had to win. It's not like Endgame, where it had Infinity War before it, where they all lost. Everyone died. Spoiler alert, everyone died in Infinity War. And in Endgame, they won. It felt like a triumph. It felt like something was earned there. But in this movie, it just felt like it was unnecessary. It was a need to an end. And that's really difficult to me in thinking like this is a decent movie, because it wasn't. It really wasn't a good movie. And I think that's my final verdict. This was not a good movie. But then again, it's not something I wouldn't watch again. At the end of the day, Star Wars is still Star Wars. And Revenge of the Sith is still gonna be Revenge of the Sith. I can always go back and watch Darth Maul. Luke Skywalker will always be Luke Skywalker, and this movie is, like it or not, a Star Wars movie, and I think this is a very good Star Wars movie. It goes across the galaxy, it goes in ships, planets, it meets new people with brand new identities, and I think that's kind of cool. That's why I watch Star Wars movies. I don't watch it for the sprawling epic that it should be. It's something that I like to watch, and it's something I will continue to like to watch, and I don't think it's something you watch. You're not going into Star Wars to watch The Godfather. You're going in to escape. You're going in to watch someone travel the stars. I think that's what this movie inevitably was at the end of the day. Yes, this movie's half-baked. Yes, it feels rushed. Yes, the characters aren't very compelling apart from like 2 of them, but I still love it. It's Star Wars. You know, no matter how good or bad the movie is, I'm still gonna rewatch it 7 million times and love it. I mean, I don't know about this one. I don't know about 7 million. I'll probably watch this one twice and probably get sick of it. But I like this movie. I like talking about it. It always makes a conversation because people always, and I mean always, get pissed about Star Wars. There's always something to bitch and moan about. Like, everyone has something to say about this topic. I think that's so cool. This is the end of the review, so I know I didn't talk about everything. I didn't talk about Chewbacca. I didn't talk about C-3PO. I didn't talk about, like, Luke's part in it, and I don't know. I just wanted to talk about the stuff I noticed and what I liked and what I disliked. And I don't think I need to talk about everything, because if I talked about everything, this movie video would be like 80 years long. So, yeah, give me your thoughts down in the comments. What do you think this movie was? Did you think it was good? Did you think it was bad? Or is it the masterpiece that everyone wished it was? I don't know. Tell me down below. And if you like the video, make sure you give it a like. Subscribe if you're new. I mean, I only have like, what, 20 of us? I know like most of you, like personally, but if you're new and I don't know you personally, comment something, subscribe, leave a like. That'd be greatly appreciated. And then I'll see you guys later. Goodbye. Big Steve up.